The winter of January 10th, 49 BC, shrouded the Italian peninsula in tense silence. In the darkness before dawn, a small column of horsemen rides south toward a shallow river, a stream so narrow that a man could cross it in a single stride. Yet this stream, the Rubicon, is no ordinary waterline. It is the invisible border between peace and civil war, between the Republic of Rome and the chaos of ambition. At its bank, Gaius Julius Caesar halts. Behind him, the veterans of the 13th Legion, men who had followed him through Gaul, who had seen mountains bleed and rivers run red. Before him, the territory of Italy, the sacred soil of Rome. To cross it with an army is treason. For a moment, the wind carries only the sound of the river and the breathing of horses. Then Caesar dismounts, stares into the current, and utters the words that will end a republic 5 centuries old. Alea iacta est. The die is cast. The Rubicon swallows his reflection as he steps forward. The soldiers follow. Steel meets water and history begins to move. Rome, the greatest power on earth, has just declared war upon itself. The news spreads through Italy like fire on dry wheat. In the capital, the Senate trembles. Pompey the Great, once Caesar's ally and now his rival, had assumed the Republic's armies would stand against one man. But Caesar is not merely a man, he is a force carved by conquest. He commands the loyalty of legions hardened in Gaul, men who had crushed the Helvetii, shattered the Nervi, and stormed the walls of Alesia. They are not just soldiers, they are believers. When the Senate orders him to lay down his command and return to Rome as a private citizen, Caesar's answer is silence, the kind that precedes thunder. By the time the senators realize what he has done, Caesar has already crossed the Rubicon. In Rome, panic erupts. Pompey, claiming to defend the Republic, orders a general evacuation. The Senate flees south toward Capua, then to Brundisium, the port that faces Greece. It is a retreat, not a strategy. Caesar, meanwhile, advances with startling speed. No hesitation, no supply trains, only momentum. Cities surrender without resistance. Gates open before his banners. The veterans of Gaul move like a storm sweeping down the spine of Italy. Within weeks, Caesar controls the entire peninsula without a single battle. Pompey abandons Italy entirely, escaping across the Adriatic to regroup in the east. The Republic, the world's master, now has 2 governments, 2 armies, and 2 visions of Rome. For the common citizen, confusion reigns. Both sides claim to fight for liberty, but in truth, liberty had already died the moment Caesar's boots touched Italian soil. As the last of Pompey's ships disappear over the horizon, Caesar rides into a city eerily quiet. Rome, emptied of her Senate. The streets that once echoed with triumphal processions now lie silent. The Forum stands deserted, its marble steps littered with forgotten scrolls and abandoned to the crows. In that silence, Caesar walks alone beneath the shadow of the Capitol, a general standing in the heart of a ghost republic. He takes not the title of king nor dictator, not yet. First, he must pursue Pompey to the east and crush the last resistance to his rule. But already he knows, the Rubicon cannot be uncrossed. He has gambled everything, the Republic, his honour and the world's future, on the cast of a single die. And that die is still rolling. A shadow stretches over Rome, long and silent, but heavy with threat. The city that once echoed with debate, law and triumph now holds its breath. Marble halls shudder under anxious footsteps. Senators whisper behind closed doors, their words sharp with fear, plotting and desperation. 5 centuries of Republican freedom, built on sacrifice, debate and the sweat of generations, tremble on the brink of annihilation. The die has been cast. Caesar's boots have crossed the Rubicon, and the Republic can no longer pretend that its fate lies in its own hands. Loyalty fractures. Governors in distant provinces hesitate, weighing survival against principle. Soldiers murmur among themselves, torn between duty and fear. And everywhere, whispers ripple through the city. Hero, tyrant, conqueror. Pompey rallies the Senate's loyalists, but panic undercuts every plan. the machinery of government creaks and groans under the weight of uncertainty. Corruption, ambition, and fear intertwine, choking the very institutions that once held Rome together. The streets are alive with rumours, with the anxious gaze of citizens who know the storm is coming, though they cannot yet see its full fury. And through it all, one man's shadow stretches across the city. Caesar's campaigns in Gaul, his victories and cunning, his unshakable discipline, every step, every decision has been designed to bend Rome to his will. To some, he is the salvation of a faltering republic. To others, the embodiment of tyranny. To history, he is both, a storm incarnate, unstoppable, inevitable. Rome teeters on the edge, not of a single battle, but of the collapse of an entire era. 500 years of freedom, law, and shared governance hang by a thread. And the die, once cast in the shadowed waters of the Rubicon, rolls onward, shaping destinies, alliances, and the very soul of a republic that may never rise again. The stage is set, the actors are in motion, the city waits trembling for the moment when history will bend and ambition will claim its due. The Republic is more than Rome's streets and Senate halls. It is the sum of its people, its leaders, and the choices that bind them. In 49 BC, these choices fall into the hands of a few extraordinary men, each carrying the weight of history on their shoulders. At the centre stands Gaius Julius Caesar, the conqueror of Gaul, whose ambition is matched only by his brilliance in war and politics. He has marched legions across rivers, mountains and borders, bending every obstacle to his will. Loyal, disciplined and battle-hardened, his men do not merely follow orders, they follow destiny itself. Opposing him is Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, Pompey the Great, the Senate's champion, whose victories in Spain, the East, and against pirates have earned him fame, wealth, and influence. Confident, proud, and unyielding, he believes that numbers, resources, and tradition will secure victory, yet underestimates the audacity of one determined general. Among the shadows lurk other figures who will shape the Republic's fate. Cato of Utica, unbending in principle, a man for whom liberty outweighs life itself. Marcus Junius Brutus, thoughtful yet conflicted, torn between loyalty and conscience. Mark Antony, a soldier whose fiery devotion to Caesar will ignite the passions of men and nations alike. And across the Mediterranean, Cleopatra, the young queen of Egypt, whose intelligence, courage and political acumen will entangle Rome's destiny with that of her kingdom. Each man, each decision, becomes a thread in the fabric of history. Caesar's ambition will clash with Pompey's authority. The idealism of Cato will confront the pragmatism of generals. The cunning of Cleopatra will challenge the arrogance of Rome itself. Their interactions, alliances and rivalries are not mere politics. They are the heartbeat of a dying republic. The die, cast months before at the Rubicon, continues to roll. Caesar's march through Italy, Pompey's flight to Greece, and the manoeuvrings of Rome's greatest minds are the overture to a conflict that will determine who controls the Republic, and whether it will survive at all. Here, in the names and faces of these men, the Republic's destiny is revealed, fragile, volatile, and poised on the edge of transformation. In the coming battles, in every decision, their courage, cunning, and ambition will decide not only their fates, but the fate of 500 years of Roman freedom. The winter sun barely rises over the Italian hills, casting long shadows across towns left empty in haste. Caesar's legions move like a tide, unstoppable and silent, over roads carved by centuries of traders and soldiers alike. Each step forward is a defiance of centuries of law, tradition and expectation. The Republic watches, paralysed as its own creation marches against it. Pompey, once Caesar's comrade in arms and co-ruler of the Republic, scrambles to gather forces in the south. Senators flee Rome, carrying decrees, treasures and fear. In Capua, in Brundisium, they attempt to marshal the old Republic, but the speed of Caesar's advance leaves them grasping at shadows. Across the peninsula, cities open their gates without a fight. The people, unsure whose cause is just, are caught between loyalty to Rome and awe at the unstoppable force moving through their streets. Caesar's veterans enter towns with disciplined calm. No plunder, no chaos, only the quiet assertion of power. Rome itself, the beating heart of the Republic, remains eerily empty, awaiting a future it can no longer control. Caesar moves with purpose, knowing the eyes of history are upon him. Every legion, every cohort, every marching step carries not just soldiers, but the weight of ambition. He does not merely occupy territory, he reshapes the political and moral landscape of Rome itself. And as the Adriatic glimmers on the horizon, Pompey boards ships bound for Greece, gathering what remains of Republican power. Caesar, standing on Italian soil, pauses only for a moment, then presses on. The die has been cast and the path to the east is open. Italy is his, yet the war for Rome's soul has only just begun. Every decision, every conquest will ripple across the Republic, bringing it closer to the edge of freedom, or to the dawn of something entirely new. The plains of Thessaly stretch endlessly under a July sun, their golden heat shimmering like molten metal. Caesar's legions, weary but unbroken, form precise ranks across the field. Shields gleam, standards snap sharply in the wind, and the air vibrates with the low hum of anticipation. Across the plain, Pompey's army sprawls like a forest of red banners, vast, disciplined, and confident in their numerical superiority. Pompey's plan is simple: crush Caesar with sheer numbers, encircle his flanks, and leave no Roman alive to tell the tale. His officers radiate certainty. Their general Magnus believes victory is inevitable. Caesar, outnumbered nearly 2-1, surveys the battlefield with calm calculation. Every ridge, every gust of wind, every tremor in the enemy ranks becomes part of his strategy. Each soldier is a piece in a deadly living game. The clash comes with brutal force. Pompey's cavalry sweeps down Caesar's right flank. Arrows hiss and strike men and horses alike. Shouts, the clash of steel and the pounding of hooves create a storm of chaos across the plain. Yet Caesar moves among his men like a master conductor, reinforcing faltering lines, repositioning reserves, his voice slicing through panic. Hold! For Rome. For victory. Then, the decisive move. Hidden reserves along the centre double the density of Caesar's legions, a formation Pompey does not anticipate. When Pompey's cavalry attacks, they meet not retreat, but an unstoppable counterstrike. Caesar's hidden infantry sweeps the enemy flanks, shattering cohesion, turning confusion into controlled carnage. Pompey rides along collapsing lines, desperate to restore order, but the tide cannot be held. By afternoon, the battlefield is a maelstrom of dust, blood and bodies. 6,000 Romans lie dead. Senators, nobles, veterans. Caesar surveys the aftermath, quiet but resolute. Well, they would have it thus. Pompey flees toward the Adriatic coast, seeking refuge on ships bound for Egypt. Behind him, the Republic teeters on the edge. Caesar's triumph is total, military, political and symbolic. The old guard of Rome is broken, scattered or fleeing, and the path to Rome lies open. Yet even in victory, shadows linger. Egypt awaits, a land of intrigue and danger, where Pompey's escape could ignite new treachery, and where Caesar's next gambit must be swift, precise, and ruthless. As the sun sets over Thessaly, Caesar's legions tend the wounded, gather the dead, and prepare for the next storm of war. The die is cast once more, and the fate of the Republic balances on the ambition and cunning of one man. Pompey's fleet fades into the horizon, yet his shadow lingers in Alexandria. The city gleams along the harbour, a jewel of wealth, intrigue and danger. Inside the palace, young Ptolemy XIII trembles, caught in the whispers of ambitious courtiers. Fate waits here, where politics is as deadly as the sharpest sword. Pompey steps onto Egyptian sand seeking refuge, only to be betrayed. Steel meets flesh, and the once mighty general falls. His head is sent to Caesar, a grim herald of the merciless rules of power. Days later, Caesar arrives with a small force, confronting a kingdom on the brink of civil war. Alexandria seethes with tension, streets crowded with soldiers, guards shifting loyalties, fires smouldering in the alleyways. Victory will not come from force alone. Then, an audacious act changes the course of history. A tightly rolled carpet is presented to Caesar. From it emerges Cleopatra VII, young, fearless, brilliant. Her gaze is sharp, her resolve unshakable. Risking everything, she secures her throne and aligns with the man who has shattered the Republic and crushed Pompey. Caesar is captivated, not by wealth or power, but by her courage and cunning. He reinstates Cleopatra alongside her brother, Ptolemy XIV, securing loyalty and Egyptian resources. Yet danger is far from over. Achillas, loyal to Ptolemy XIII, rises in rebellion, forcing Caesar into fierce urban combat. The streets of Alexandria become a battlefield. Narrow alleys trap soldiers, missile volleys rain from rooftops, and fire devours parts of the city, including sections of the Great Library. Yet Caesar's tactical genius turns chaos into opportunity. With disciplined maneuvers, a handful of men repels thousands, stabilizing the city. By spring 47 BC, Cleopatra rules firmly, backed by Roman power and wealth. Caesar departs Egypt with a secure treasury, a political ally, and a child, Caesarion, signaling the intertwining of two worlds. But Caesar's campaign is far from finished. Reports arrive that Pharnaces II of Pontus has invaded Asia Minor, seeking to exploit Rome's distraction. Egypt is pacified, but the East awaits, promising speed, precision, and a showdown destined to echo through history. The sands of Alexandria settle, yet the echoes of war and ambition surge forward. The next storm of conquest is already forming. Asia Minor lies under a summer sun, shimmering over the plains where a new threat gathers. Pharnaces II of Pontus, sensing Rome distracted by civil war, invades with ambition burning in his eyes. The kingdom trembles, cities brace, and reports reach Caesar in Alexandria. The East will not wait. Without delay, Caesar moves with the speed and precision that has become his signature. His legions, seasoned and disciplined, march relentlessly. The dust of the roads rising like a warning to all who oppose him. Every step carries the weight of Rome's prestige and the urgency of survival. At Zela, the armies meet. Pharnaces boasts superior numbers, confident that Rome's internal chaos will be his advantage. But Caesar, master of timing and terrain, sees opportunity and apparent disadvantage. He deploys his troops with lethal efficiency, arranging formations that will strike like iron upon flesh. The clash is swift, brutal, and decisive. Roman discipline meets Pontic overconfidence. Pilum arcs through the air, Gladius bites into armour, and the cries of men echo across the valley. Pharnaces' forces falter against the relentless advance of Caesar's veterans, their lines breaking under the weight of tactical genius. Within hours, the battle is over. Zela falls, Pharnaces flees, and the East is reminded that Caesar's reach is unstoppable. Letters to Rome travel fast. Veni, vidi, vici, I came, I saw, I conquered. 3 words, simple yet absolute, declaring the swift, undeniable victory. For Caesar, Zela is more than a triumph. It is a statement. Rome may be torn by civil war, yet its legions, its strategies, and its leaders remain unassailable. Each victory solidifies his legend, each conquest tightens his grip on destiny. The Republic watches from afar, trembling. One man's ambition now dictates the fate of not just Italy, but the wider Mediterranean world. And though the East is pacified for now, Caesar knows peace is temporary, and Rome's enemies, internal and external, will always test the limits of his resolve. The African coast shimmers under a pale winter sun, the sea restless against the sands where Pompeian loyalists have gathered. Africa is the last stronghold of resistance, the final refuge for senators and generals who refuse Caesar's rule. Among them stands Cato of Utica, resolute, a living emblem of republican virtue, ready to die for a republic already on its knees. Caesar arrives with veteran legions hardened by years of conquest. Each man knows the stakes. Victory here will mean the collapse of all organised resistance. Every step forward is measured, disciplined, yet unyielding. The air hums with tension. Even the waves seem to wait. The Pompeian forces, though desperate, prepare for battle. They fortify positions, hope in their numbers, and trust in their commanders. Yet against Caesar, hope is fragile. His strategies unfold like a masterful composition, each maneuver designed to divide, confuse, and crush. The battle erupts in a storm of iron and fury. Pilum fly, gladius bites, and the cries of men echo across the plains and dunes. Caesar's legions press relentlessly, their cohesion unbroken, their discipline unwavering. The Pompeians, despite courage, falter under the pressure, lines breaking, morale crumbling. Cato watches from his stronghold. When defeat becomes inevitable, he chooses the only freedom left to him: death on his own terms. His suicide becomes a symbol, a bitter elegy for the republic that once was. By nightfall, the field is Caesar's. The last organised Pompeian forces lie shattered, scattered, or dead. Africa, once a land of defiance, bends to Rome and Caesar's will. Yet victory is bittersweet. The cost of civil war weighs heavily, and the Republic's ideals lie in ashes. From Thapsus, the message is clear. Resistance is futile, and Caesar's path to absolute power is nearly complete. Rome's future is no longer uncertain. It is being forged, one decisive victory at a time. The hills of Hispania stretch endlessly under a scorching sun, golden and unforgiving, the final stage for the Republic's last desperate gamble. Here, the remnants of Pompey's loyalists, fierce and embittered, prepare to defend their cause to the last breath. Their banners ripple like fire in the wind, cries of vengeance echoing across the plains. Caesar's legions arrive, seasoned, disciplined, and relentless. Years of campaigning have tempered them into a living weapon, each soldier a cog in the machine of conquest. Yet even the veterans sense the weight of this final battle, the culmination of years of war, the closing of the Republic's age. The clash begins with thunderous intensity. Cavalry charges, swords flash, pilum fly, and the dust rises like a storm of fury. Every man fights not only for Caesar or Rome, but for survival, for history itself. Caesar rides along the front, calm amid chaos, his presence a beacon of authority and courage. The Pompeian forces fight with desperation, striking at Caesar's flanks, attempting to fracture his lines. Yet discipline holds. Each maneuver by Caesar is precise, each counterattack crushing, each command executed with ruthless efficiency. Slowly, inexorably, the Pompeian army begins to falter. Hours stretch into an eternity of blood and steel. When the dust settles, the battlefield lies silent but for the moans of the wounded. The last organised resistance is broken. Pompeian generals lie dead, their soldiers scattered. Hispania, once a theatre of rebellion, is now subdued. Victory at Munda is total. Caesar has crushed the final stronghold of opposition, securing not only military supremacy, but unchallenged authority over the Republic. Yet even in triumph, shadows linger. The Republic's ideals are buried beneath the legion's march, and the path to dictatorship lies open, paved in blood. Caesar surveys the field, the weight of history pressing upon him. The die has been cast once more, and this time the Republic will never rise as it once did. The streets of Rome fall silent as a single shadow moves through the forum. Not a senator, not a soldier, but a man who has bent the world to his will. Every step echoes like a drumbeat of destiny. 5 centuries of Republican voices, debates, laws, and the will of the people vanish under the weight of ambition. Caesar emerges atop a gilded chariot. Laurel-crowned, the the spoils of conquest trailing behind him. Gaul, Hispania, Egypt, and the remnants of the Pompeian army, all conquered, all subdued. Rome does not cheer, it holds its breath. Whispers crawl through marble halls. Senators plot in fear, eyes darting, knives hidden beneath togas. Liberty, shared governance, the Republic itself, all shattered in the shadow of one man's relentless will. Triumphal processions snake through the forum. Legionaries march in precise columns, banners snapping in the wind, their victories over distant lands on full display. Captured standards, chariots filled with spoils, and prisoners dragged through the streets speak of Caesar's genius and of the Republic's quiet death. Yet even in victory shadows stir. Brutus, Cassius, and other senators watch from the Senate's shadowed corridors. The man who defeated Pompey, tamed nations, and commanded loyalty with a mere glance is now seen as a tyrant. Conspiracies coil like serpents ready to strike. The Ides of March arrives, the Senate gathers, tension thick as fog, the air vibrating with fear and anticipation. Caesar enters, unaware of the daggers poised to puncture centuries of Republican tradition. Steel flashes, screams split the air, blood stains the steps of the Capitol. The man who cast the die to end the Republic falls, his ambition etched into history in crimson. But the Republic cannot rise from this wound. Its ideals, fractured beyond repair, scatter like autumn leaves in the wind. Out of the chaos rises Octavian, heir to Caesar's vision, both instrument of vengeance and architect of continuity. The old Republic is gone, replaced by an empire, inevitable, unstoppable, eternal. Rome's 5 centuries of Republican freedom end not with a single battle, but in the relentless, grinding triumph of ambition, civil war, and a man who dared to seize destiny. Caesar's shadow stretches across the world, marking the point where the Republic gave way to empire, and history would never be the same again.